Squad, come on up. Squad, come on up.
Good morning, Tabernacle family. As you can see, I'm here. This is baptism, and it was a great time and a joyful occasion. And what makes it joyful is the fact of seeing one publicly declare their faith in Jesus Christ. Now, many of us in the sanctuary this morning know that just because we do that, and I really shouldn't even say just because, I should say, and because we publicly declare our faith, that we can expect highs, lows, and all of the things in between that come to life. The difference is we face it with joy and a hope, and we overcome by a strength that is not our own. It's through the Holy Spirit. But one thing we can expect is God to develop us as his disciples. And one way God does that is through detours. Detours happen in life when things happen unexpectedly, or it starts out like we thought it would, and then all of a sudden there's a sharp turn to the right or to the left. Or all of a sudden the bottom drops out of something. Or something just overwhelms us. It can be job, it can be family, it can be marriage, it can be singlehood, it can be anything. God uses a multitude of things to develop us. And he does it by taking us on detours. Rarely does a Christian get from point A to point B in just a straight line. Usually we go from point A to point C, to G, to J, back to G again, because sometimes we don't get the lesson, so that we have to go through the same kind of detour. But rest assured, our detours are not anything that catch God off guard. In fact, he uniquely designs them and or allows them so he can shape us in a way that on the other side of it, he gets the credit and the glory. So this morning, we launch our series, Detours. You may be in a detour right now. Life may be sending you on a route that you didn't expect, or you expected it, but you didn't expect it to go quite like it's going. You may be discouraged, you may be in despair, you may be depressed, you may feel like everything is self-destructive. Can I tell you, detours are a part of our destiny. It's a part of our time here on earth that God uses to help us arrive into the image of his son, to be the children he's called us to be, to trust him as Father. It's in the detours where our faith is stretched and tested and grown. So sit back, enjoy this as we head into this month talking about detours. And I pray that if you're on a detour right now, that this blesses you in a tremendous way. That boy all right there. Parents did good. Good morning. If you don't mind, if you got a Bible or if you use a Bible app, turn to Genesis chapter 17. Starting at verse 15. And as you're getting there, I want to highlight to you this sermon series, as you heard me mention in the video, detours. Life is full of them. Full of them. And if you're anything like me, how many of you know when you're driving and you see a detour sign, you immediately get frustrated? Because that means whatever you had planned is now delayed. And if you're not in a familiar place, you get more frustrated because you're at the mercy of whatever those signs tell you to do and or go. And let's be real for a moment, as you're getting there, most of us don't like being at somebody else's mercy.
How many of you know you like being the captain of your own ship?
All right. Amen.
That's why you drive, because that way you're not boxed in waiting for somebody.
Amen.
If they run late, because they got some more additions to do with hair and or makeup, you get to roll and or wait patiently and say, yes, dear. But detours are a part of life. And we're going to dig into a major detour this morning, talking about the life of Abraham. Yeah. Yeah. If you got that, let's stand. Let's read this text and then get right into it. And as our theme for the year is being, you can't be who God called you to be without going through some detours.
All right.
Amen.
Some godly detours. Yeah. Where God seemingly shuts your plan down. Rarely do we go from point A to point B. It's point A, point F, back to B. Especially, watch this, if you didn't catch the lesson the first time on the detour. God has a way of making detours look very similar. You just seem like your life is in one big circle. Anybody ever been there? Yeah. Ever watched the movie National Lampoon's Vacation where they got stuck in London just going around Big Ben? Life can be like that sometimes, where you just, and you going, I should be further than this. My life should look different than this. And here I am dealing with the same thing. Different face, but same attitude in a person. I won't even get into that. But here we are dealing with Abraham's life. God promised him something, and it took 25 years to come to fruition. How many of you know you can wait patiently 25 years for a promise?
All right.
Good. Show me after service how you do. Please, please. In fact, next week, you prepare the message and you come teach. And I'm going to sit right here in the front row.
All right.
Because I need to hear how you wait patiently for 25 years. You're going to wait, but I don't know about patience.
All right.
Yeah. So if you got that master, please come teach me. Matter of fact, I need a lesson during the week. What's your availability? 25 years waiting on God to do something he said he was going to do. Starting at verse 15, the word of God says this. Then God said to Abraham, as for Sarai, your wife, you shall not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. And I will bless her, and indeed I will give you a son by her. Then I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of peoples will come from her. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed and said in his heart, will a child be born to a man 100 years old? And will Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child? And Abraham said to God, oh, that Ishmael might live before you. But God said, no, but Sarah, your wife, will bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac. And I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant for his descendants after him. As for Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I will bless him, and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. He shall become the father of 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you at this season next year. God didn't even let it happen right then. He said, you still got more time on the clock. When he finished talking with him, God went up from Abraham. Let's pray. Father, thank you for your patience as we become impatient in life's detours. Speak to our hearts and speak to our minds. Lord, you know where we are, you know what we face, you know what we deal with, and we know that you are the God of it all. Help us this morning to allow your detours to develop us into who you want us to be. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. You may have your seats. I want to just speak for a few moments about a prolonged promise. Prolonged promise. Typically, when someone makes a promise, I don't know about you, but when someone says they promise after a statement, I usually take that word, I promise, to mean something that not only is true, but that will happen fairly quickly. And if I have any other people who are honest this morning, how many of you know typically when someone says, I promise, you put them on a time clock of when it's going to come to fruition? Life is such that it's full of those from God, except the only problem is we don't get to put God on a time clock. In fact, most times with God's promises, they are wrapped up in at least one detour. And as I stated earlier, detours can be a deterring factor, particularly because you don't know what the outcome is going to be. I remember a few years ago driving to Cleveland, and I'm just getting into the state of Ohio, and they had the whole entire highway shut down, orange signs saying exit this way. I immediately got nervous because this is my first time ever driving through the state of Ohio, and it is nighttime, and I'm in a rental car, and I am by myself. And I'm thinking, I need to be somewhere in about 4 hours, and if I can't get past this detour, I'm going to be late. And so as the signs directed me, it took me from one detour to another detour, because not only could you not use the highway, you couldn't use the street that was the first exit off the highway. So we ended up on some back roads in the middle of the night. And finally, because I do have that ism like most men, I'll gladly admit it, pray for me, lay hands, but I don't like to stop and ask anybody for instructions.
All right.
So here I am driving, not knowing where I'm going, and I am determined, because I am the captain of my own ship, I am the master of my own fate, to find my way.
All right.
Only to end up at a gas station that was getting ready to close, and I had to run in there and ask the man. I said, how do I get back to Highway 70? Because I've been out here in these backwoods for about a half hour, and it don't feel too good, and nothing looks familiar. And I said, you're the only thing that I found that's still open at this time of night. And he gladly gave me directions, and his directions incidentally led me to another detour, by which finally I get back to the highway. After all of that had happened, about an hour and a half had been chopped off my travel time, and I remember thinking to myself, Lord, why did you do this to me? And I feel like it was very clearly as if Jesus was sitting on the passenger side saying, well, this is what happens in life when you put me to the side instead of allowing me to guide you from the front. And life is like that, and we get to see that detours are God's way of Him showing who's in charge and who we are to trust.
All right.
Here Abraham is, he's about almost 20 years in to what God had promised him. In chapter 11, verse 30, the text tells us that Sarai was going to be barren and that she did not have any children. Chapter 12 tells us that God makes his covenant to establish his plan of redemption with Abraham. He says, leave what's familiar, get out to what's unfamiliar. I will show you the way to go. Just follow me. And so Abraham packs up everything, watch this, without a GPS, without a map, without even knowing which direction really to head other than to follow God's voice. Verse 4 of chapter 12, the text tells us at this point he's 75 years old. Now, most of us, if we're in here, would be honest. It's one thing to get lost in or have life seemingly take you down a track you don't want when you're young. But talk to me after you've lived a little while and you think life is supposed to coast a little bit and you're getting close to retirement, and so you shouldn't have these kinds of detours. And God shows up in the midst of your plan and says, wait a minute, leave what's familiar, come follow me. And oh, by the way, I know your age, I know your demographics, I know your degrees or lack thereof, and yet I'm calling you to a place that you've never been before, and you can't get to what you've never seen before unless you trust me.
Amen.
Come on now. And so here it is, that's chapter 12. He says he's 75. Abraham is excited. After all, God has promised him not one child, but to birth many nations. He doesn't know what that looks like, but he knows God's voice. And so if God said it, he believed it. He's following him. Verse 7 says there's a promise of land tied to the promise of a son. And so Abraham is doing his thing. By chapter 15, God comes back around again and says to him, Abraham, Listen to me. I'm going to bless you. I'm going to make you great. I'm going to make your name great. I'm going to give you an abundance of family to follow for generations. Now Abraham is starting to question God because he's been walking 10 years. See, it's easy to talk to me about faith when you only done lived through something for 5 minutes, but talk to me after you've been through something for a few years and in your few years your life ain't changed. Talk to me when you had to walk for a few months with no money. It's easy to tell me to have faith and believe in God when you only been broke 5 minutes, but tell me what it's like when you've been broke most of your life and you've been trying to piece it together and God seemingly just takes crumbs and crumb after crumb and sickness after sickness and holds your body together. Abraham says in chapter 15, God, now wait a minute, hold up. You told me about a child and I don't have a child and my wife is getting older and it seems like my legacy and my inheritance is going to get left to a stranger in my house. God in verse 6 says to him, no, Abraham, of chapter 15, you're not going to have to give your inheritance to a stranger. I got a son that's coming. Seems to me that God likes, it feels like, can I say this and you not hit me? It seems like in one sense God likes to play game.
All right.
Because you can't keep telling me something's coming and I'm sitting on the edge of my seat and I've been sitting for 10 years.
Come on.
And it ain't showed up yet. Yeah,
right.
Some of y'all looking at me real religious, but let the person next to you tell you they coming with something. If they ain't back in 10 minutes, you got an attitude. Hour, what you been doing? 2 hours, you a fraud. Who are you? You told me you was going to show up. I was waiting for you. It's hot outside. Now it's 3 o'clock, and I ain't got no air or no water waiting
Come on now.
on
Right.
you. But God is walking Abraham through a process. So now he's 10 years in with no child. By chapter 16, his wife, bride says, Abram, listen, I'm getting old. Can I paraphrase?
Yeah.
I'm getting old, Abram, and ain't nothing coming through here. Read between the lines.
Keep 100, so.
I'm getting old. You getting old. But we got some people in this house. You can connect with her. You know it's a desperate situation.
Come on, sir.
When a sister is willing to deliver her husband to another woman that lives under the roof of her own house.
All right.
See, you don't have the spiritual imagination I do. I got more questions. I want to know, how did they live together when one is pregnant and the other one want to be and can't? How do you walk next to somebody who's living out your promise? You get to watch it every day, but yet you can't experience it for yourself. How do you stay happy and joyful and get up in the morning knowing when you go to the kitchen table for breakfast, all y'all sitting down together and she got what you want? Somebody talk to me. You looking at me real strange, but I guarantee you, first off, ain't none of y'all giving y'all man to another woman willingly. Secondly, you definitely ain't gonna have her at the dinner table. Thirdly, she ain't gonna sleep in your house, in your bed, where you pay bills and or organize. Fourthly, you definitely ain't gonna be around and watch her birth something by your man.
Speak, sir. Speak.
You want to pretend as if, oh, I would have no problem with that, Pastor, because God said it. Don't lie to me like that. Most of y'all ready to cut a sister if she look at them in the mall, let alone y'all gonna live together, share stuff together, including him. And most of all, she's got something that seemingly God keeps from you, even though he promised you he was gonna give it to you.
Come on now.
And you gotta watch it. You gotta watch it grow. You gotta watch it metabolize. You gotta watch it come to fruition. And all the while, God's still whispering in your ear about what you gonna get and what's gonna become of you. Meanwhile, you empty and you bankrupt and you can't get it, but she got it. And she got it by you helping her out. So now you get an attitude, even though you the one that came up with the idea. I know you don't have my spiritual imagination, but you talk about reality TV. I couldn't imagine being Abraham in that house after Ishmael was born. And so here it is. She has the baby. They deviate from God's plan because God said a baby was coming. Now we get to chapter 17, and here it is in the first verse. It tells us by now when we get to chapter 17, Abraham is 99 years old. He's been waiting 24 years for this promise that God said. He's deviated from God's plan, and God reiterates and says, walk upright before me and be blameless. Now Abraham is getting frustrated. He's wondering, God, how is this going to happen in my life? You keep walking me through detours. Every time I get close to it, you lead me away from it. Every time I get to peek at it, you seemingly blind me so I can't attain it. And God says to him in this beloved chapter, watch this, we get down to verse 15. After he talks about Abraham to Abraham, now he talks to Abraham about Sarah. And the first thing we see in the text right here in verse 15 is God never forgets his promises.
All right.
Now I know I just told you Abraham been waiting 24 years, but can I tell you, God never forgets his promises. He says in verse 15 very clearly, then God said to Abraham, and for Sarai, your wife, you shall call her name not Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. Can I tell you, when God lets you know that he hasn't forgot, one way he does it, he makes a radical move. Can I tell you what's radical about changing her name? Because in this culture and society, the patriarch, the man named the kids, the man gave the names, the man labeled things. And in fact, when the earth was created, God gave man the responsibility to label it.
All right.
So here it is, all of a sudden, now God makes a move and says, look, Abraham, because I'm getting ready to do something miraculous in your life, I need to show you who the real boss is. So he steps into his life, intervenes into his family affairs, flips the family matters on his head, and names his wife another name. Wait a minute, a man comes in another man's house and changes his name? Yes, if it's God, God can come in your house and flip whatever he wants to flip, because he is God, and besides him there is no others. Now some of us are sitting here looking at me crazy because you're saying to yourself, God can't do that. But I rest assured, if you are his, then you and all of you belong to him.
All right.
Amen.
Which means when something belongs to somebody, they can do with it what they choose.
All right.
And so God makes this radical move. He changes her name to clearly state who she is, because her name Sarai wasn't clear in Hebrew about what it really meant. It had a bunch of meanings and names. But when he flips it to Sarah, it means princess. Yeah. Sister girl is 90 years old, and now she becomes a princess. But not only does God make a radical move to show us he doesn't forget his promises, God sends reminders. Because let's be real, all of us can become a little forgetful after we got to wait some time. Let's talk for a minute. Can we talk and be real just for a moment? If I promise you I'm bringing you $20, after a while and that $20 don't come, you forget about that $20. Because here's what we do. We substitute and say, since you can't make it happen. Okay, you looking at me like you ain't never substituted on somebody's promise. You ain't never slid in on their promise when they said they was going to do something and they didn't come through because you done waited a few days, a few hours, ain't got no phone, ain't got no text, ain't got no email, ain't got no Twitter, no Instagram, they ain't posted on Facebook. You all of a sudden and I all of a sudden start filling in gaps. Okay, I'm going to make my own $20. Since you can't come through and you looking for them, because then the wish factor kicks in. Can we talk about the wish factor?
All right.
You hope they show up late so they can see what you did without them, so you can say, I don't need your faulty or janky promises. Let me show you what I'm able to do. I know that ain't you. You real nice and kind, and you pray for them when they show up after the fact, even though they didn't give you what they said they was going to give you or deliver what they said they was going to deliver. I know you welcome them, but I look for them so I can show them, look what God did without you.
Come on now.
And I got a weird sense this morning. I ain't the only one who think like that.
All right.
And so here it is. God reminds Abraham in verse 16. He says, I will bless her. Can I tell you what's significant about that? English doesn't do it justice. The way that that's written in Hebrew, when he says, I will bless her, it means that I'm going to include her, but I'm not going to tell you the process by which I do it. I'm not going to lay out for you how I'm going to bless her. I'm not going to give you the steps. Where my planners at? Who planned everything?
Come on.
Yeah, 7:05 I brush my teeth. 7:07 I put my shoes on. 7:08 I tie my shoes. 7:11 I'm in the car. 7:15 I'm stopping for coffee. By 8 o'clock I'm at work. 8:02 I logged in. 8:05 my co-worker's late. Now I got to write them up. Where my planners at? Who planned everything?
Amen.
Can I tell you why you're struggling on the detours? Because God don't give plans. He just does what he does.
Yeah.
Can I tell you what's going to upset you and frustrate you? Is the fact that God has said, I'm going to do it. I'm just not going to tell you how I'm going to do it. Can I tell you what's going to make you mad? He ain't going to tell you how he's going to do it, but he ain't going to tell you who he used when he's going to do it. He may use the person you don't like. He may use the person you can't stand. He may use the job that you keep trying to quit.
Amen. Ouch.
Ooh, look at me. Don't look at your neighbor, because I know some of y'all, you were sending your resume tonight and hoping for a phone call by Friday. Can I suggest to you that God, when he puts you in a blessing and he includes you in it, he doesn't tell you the process because we don't get to dictate how he does it.
Amen.
Come on, man. Yeah. One of the most frustrating things I'll tell on myself is the fact when I'm working with somebody and I ask them what's the plan and they, well, I don't know. We'll figure it out. I mean, some stuff you can do that, but some stuff you can't. You can't navigate me on the fly, especially if we're driving. You got to tell me where we're going, or slow it down, or if necessary, stop. I'll get an Uber. I'll find my way. But God says in verse 16, I will bless her. He's including her. She has nothing to do with it. She doesn't get to say she don't want it. She doesn't get to say, I'm 90, I don't want a baby. God says, too bad, I've included you. You're going to have this baby.
Right.
God, I don't want to do that. Too bad, I've already signed you up for it. God, I don't want to live and go this route in my life. Too bad, I already figured it out for you. Because God says, since I know the beginning and the end, I know what's best for you. Right. And so I'll determine where your life goes. So here it is. He says, I will bless her. Yeah, I'm included her. She's included. She ain't got to sign up. Ain't no application or no interview. She's included.
All right.
And I just want to peek in for a moment and talk to a lady. If God showed up right now and told you at night. Yeah, that's exactly what Sarah did. She laughed.
Amen.
If God showed up at night, he waited. He watched you age. He watched you go through, stay with me, all the seasons of life. And then,
Yes, sir.
And then, after you matriculated and graduated through all them seasons, said, here it is. This what you gonna birth. Most of y'all just started laughing, and that's what Sarah did. She said, there's no way. God, didn't you see? That's why I gave him Hagar. Because this ain't possible.
All right.
But can I tell you, God walks us down detours to show us that he is the God of the impossible.
All right. Amen.
You can't say that you know him, and I can't say that I know him if we don't trust him to do stuff that we can't do ourselves.
Yes, sir.
Can I tell you what the struggle and the challenge is? Listen, because most times when we pray, we really want to believe God for everything that he says, but the reality of it is we're always thinking of another plan in the back of our mind.
Amen.
So that way, if God don't show up, I'll show up, and then I'll give him praise for my plan.
All right.
But what happens when God makes your plan barren and wipes it out? So he did that, and he's telling Abraham, while Abraham's on his face, I'm going to bless her, and kings of nations going to come from her. At 90. Because God says, I never forget my promises.
Amen.
Not only does he not forget his promises, he says, God addresses our doubts by speaking his plan. Yeah, anybody ever doubt God?
Amen. Yes, sir.
Anybody ever wonder if God is going to show up?
Come on, man.
If you ever had to wrestle with the fact of being where you are and not seeing any change, but yet feeling trapped and can't get out? Ever feel barricaded in by God as if God is saying, look, this is your plague right here. You cannot lose this. You cannot move this. You cannot pass go. You cannot collect $200. You're going to stay right here. God seemingly speaks to his doubts. Look at this, verse 17. Then Abraham fell on his face and did what y'all just did 60 seconds ago, and he laughed. And said in his heart, will a child be born from a man 100 years old? Yeah, in other words, he's laughing. Chapter 18, Sarah does the same thing, but she gets ridiculed by God. And some would say, well, why does she get ridiculed, but Abraham gets to keep having conversation? And here's the thing, what we see here when God speaks to our doubts, it's one thing to lack faith, and it's another thing for your faith to be limited. Abraham didn't lack faith, it was just limited. He knew he could have a child, because keep in mind, he had just had one.
All right.
But he was wondering, how can she have my child when she's been through what she's been through? But God takes his skepticism as an opportunity to show his sureness. Can I suggest to you, that's why when you pray, you don't have to butter it up or make it sound good when you're struggling with God. You can tell God what's on your mind. Amen. Because God is in the business of taking skeptics and making them surrender and be sure about who he is.
Amen.
Yeah, come here, Gideon. Gideon was a skeptic. Gideon was living in a depressed and oppressed situation. And God came along and told him he was going to make him a mighty warrior. Gideon said, oh, Lord, you can't do that for me. I'm too weak. I don't have the resources. Then God moves in Gideon in a mighty way, and still Gideon says, oh Lord, you can't use me. Now he gets 22,000 men, and God chops him down from 22,000 to 300, because he said, I can do more with the 300 than I can with the 22,000.
Amen.
Because God has a way of taking our skepticism and showing how sure he really is.
Amen.
So in verse 18, we see the propensity of humanity. Abraham said, look, God, let me reason with you. Let me bargain with you. Since I already got Ishmael, let him be the promise. Anybody ever try to bargain with God? Anybody ever think your plan sound better than his? Right. Somebody talk to me. Abraham says, listen, we got Ishmael in the house. And I can imagine in my sanctified imagination, he's saying, look, I got 2 women in my house. One with a child and one who want one and can't have one. Let's make this simple, God. Let's just roll with Ishmael and work this out. Because you got to remember, this child is growing up in Sarah's in presence. So her promise is growing for somebody else. So could you imagine the tension and the heartache and the headache every night? Because what does Abraham do? Whose bed does he sleep in? Who does he console when they begin to cry? How does Sarah look at him when he go to feed Ishmael knowing that ain't her baby? What does he do when Hagar wants to spend family time with her and the son?
All right.
Oh, y'all playing like y'all ain't never seen these dynamics. You just didn't think it was in your body.
All right.
Yeah, you thought the first baby mama drama was with...
Come on, preacher.
You didn't think I was going to go there, but it's in the Bible.
Yes, sir.
You thought it just showed up in your family, but let me tell you, it started from the beginning. Could you imagine for a moment? Abraham wakes up, I'm going to take the boy out to play. Says who? We got something playing. He can't go. That ain't mine.
Come on.
Talk to me.
Teach.
That's your promise. That ain't mine. That didn't come from me. Hagar in the background. Wait a minute. You ain't going to treat my child like that.
Preacher.
I don't care who she is and what God promised her. She going to learn today. You ain't going to talk to mine.
Yes, sir.
Look at me. Look at me. I know some of y'all thinking about something else right now because you can relate so deep. Just look at me. But all that's going on in his head. So he's saying, watch this. When life, watch this. Be careful, I'm making you laugh for a reason. When life gets too painful, we medicate ourselves. And so Abraham is saying, let me medicate this. God, just let him be the promise so he can wipe away all this extra I got. Yeah. Some of us picked up a habit, not because we wanted to have it, we wanted to ease the pain. Somebody talk to me, man. Yeah. You took on a second job because you don't like the first one, so if I could just keep working to keep my mind off my pain, then I can make it through my detour. But what happens when God throws up another roadblock and now all of a sudden your job ain't working? So here Abraham is in a house with 2 strong women and 1 child. And he's saying, God, listen, reason with me. A brother down here struggling. I don't know what to do. It's hard taking care of 2 women and 1 child. Under one roof. And seemingly enough, in verse 19, here's what I love about God. Because God, watch this, here's what he does. He reiterates, he designates, and then he elaborates. Verse 19, he reiterates, no, son, it ain't going to be Ishmael. Meaning you got to live through your mistake. Because detours oftentimes teach us the best lessons because it's a mistake. I've tried to avoid detours driving, go my own route, only to hit dead ends, roadblocks, have to turn around, drive back the same way that I went down, look at the same stuff I didn't want to see the first time, because seemingly God is teaching lessons about how to live through a mistake. Abraham, you ain't gonna get out of having a baby with her. You just gonna have to live with it. Can I suggest to you, some of you are in a position right now where God is making you live through something that you didn't want to live through. He's making you deal with somebody you wish you could get away from. He's got you somewhere that you're trying to run out of, and it's like you running and you keep getting pulled back because he says, I'm not gonna get you out, I'm gonna get you through.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah, you want out, I'm going to get you through. You trying to go around it, we're going through the middle of it so that when you come out on the other side,
Yes,
you'll
sir.
be able to say, it was God who did it. So he reiterates. And then he designates, he said, your boy's name is going to be named Isaac. The name Isaac means he laughs. Yeah. Isn't it ironic? The very thing that Abraham's laughing at is the very thing God said I'm going to do. Be careful what you chuckle at.
All right. Come on. Come on. Yes, sir.
Be careful what you laugh at, because when you laugh at it, that might just trigger God to do something that you thought couldn't be done. Talk to me, somebody. David didn't think it was going to come to fruition, that it wasn't going to come to pass, that he was ever going to be king. God laid hands on him when he was a small boy, but he didn't become king till he was 30. He had to walk through 22 years of headaches, heartaches, setbacks, and setups, only so he could be prepared. Why? Because treachery is the best teacher of how to be triumphant. Woo! You can't be on a detour and not get stabbed in the back. You can't be on a detour and not have your heart broke. You can't be on a detour and not have your feelings crushed, because once they get crushed, then you're open to what God wants to do.
Come on, Pastor.
Yeah. Some of us, he's got to break wide open so that he can pour something positive into us, because we holding on to something negative. So he says, I'll break it for you. Then he elaborates and tells him, yes, the covenant I'm going to make, the agreement that I'm going to make. God says, I'm going to make it with Isaac. So you got to live with Ishmael while you wait for Isaac. Yeah, what do you do when you got to live with your mistake till God gives you the miraculous?
All right.
What do you got to, how do you live with when you got to look at it every day? Yeah. I remember growing up, I was trying to take care of traffic tickets on my own, and finally it caught up with me. Letter comes in the mail, I'm at work. My dad gets it, he reads it, he goes ballistic, he calls the job, he's screaming at the manager. Put my son on the phone. Lady was shaking. Phone's for you. I knew this wasn't good. He got on the phone, come home now. I'm in the middle of my shift. I don't care what you're doing. I know where you are. I know what's going on. Shut it down. Come home now. Come with the car, because you ain't going to see it again. I pull up in the driveway. That's the longest I ever sat in the car. Because I knew it was the last time. I touched everything, because I knew he was for real.
Yeah.
I'm rubbing the steering wheel, the seats, because I knew it was a wrap. Because in that drive home, I was able to process my mistake. Ever had time to process after you messed up? Yeah, talk to me. You get a little time and you go, ooh, I didn't realize it was that bad. I thought it was this bad, but it's this bad. Okay, you ain't never made no mistakes. I'll speak on your behalf. Praise God. I walk in the house. He just had his hand out. I knew what that meant. Keys.
Yes, sir.
So I took my house key off car keys before I walked in the house, so at least I had a chance to get in.
All right, Pastor.
Just in case.
Yes, sir.
I give him the keys. He said, I can't believe this. We done talked about this. So then the car sat for at least a month in our carport. We didn't have a garage, carport. Why I highlight that? Because that meant, at least if it was a garage, I could let it down.
Right.
And I ain't have to see it.
Right.
But the fact that we had a carport means every time I went to open the front door, I had to look at a car that I could not drive, that I didn't even have keys to start up, that I still had to pay insurance on, because he said, you can't leave a car uninsured. I said, I'm not driving it, what's the point? He said, I didn't ask you for your opinion.
All right.
So then I had to find a way to work. Because the first 2 weeks, he couldn't look at me. He said, you figure it out. So I had friends, I had bus, and I had feet for 2 weeks.
All right.
Because I couldn't touch it. And I had to see my mistake. What do you do with attention when you walk past something and you wish you just had 60 seconds to do it over? To think about it from a different way and try something else, because you automatically know now at least one thing: whatever I did this time was wrong and it wasn't going to work. I lived through that, went through it, watched it. And then all of a sudden it was as if God interceded and we started having conversation. And I explained to him I was just trying to be a man and handle my responsibility. I didn't get the ones, I paid them all. Problem is I had too many. He said, I can see what you were trying to do, but the problem is when you're trying to handle things on your own without the proper wisdom,
All right.
it will cause you to do stuff that you don't need to do and go through, watch this, detours that you don't have to go down. So when Abraham, here's where I'm going, is living with this, God is saying to him, I'm going to walk you through it, but you got to live with it so you can learn a lesson, so you will think next time awful hard before you try it again.
Yeah.
I eventually got back in the car after some time later, but I had to learn the lesson. Now, when I started driving, yeah, my friends was talking about me, I'm 10 and 2 all day. Speed limit 35, I'm 30. You got somewhere else to go fast, go around it. Because now I've lived with this. And so God was showing Abraham, listen, you're going to live through it. You're going to make it. You're going to get out of this. But let me tell you, you're not going to get out of it till you learn what I want you to learn from it. So that once you learn from it, you won't repeat it. So then next time I can give you a fresh detour and not this.
All right. Amen.
So God, watch this, says, I never forget my plans. And I've got a word to speak to you when you doubt me. But then, here's the part that I love, and I'm done. God is willing to show his patience.
Amen.
How many of you know patience ain't your gift?
Amen.
Yeah. How many? Be real. You don't do well waiting. Yeah, you don't wait. If the line is too long at the restaurant, you on Google looking for the next open spot so you can register somewhere else so you can eat. Somebody talk to me.
Come on, sir.
Yeah, and God, yet in the text shows us, and I'm done with y'all after this, that he's willing to show his patience. Check this out. In verse 20, as for Ishmael, he says, I heard you, Abraham. So it wasn't like God wasn't listening. God says, I heard you. So here's what he does. Here's how he shows his patience. The first place he does it is by giving us a gracious extension.
Amen. Amen.
He says, here's your mistake, Ishmael. I heard you crying about him, and yet I blessed him too, and I'm going to make his name great. In other words, God says, I'm going to take your mistake and turn it into a mission and make a ministry out of it because I love you just that much. How do you think you sit here this morning? Because God gave you a gracious extension. How many of you know you should be dead, you should be in jail, you should have more kids than you got, you should be more worse off than you are, but God gave you a gracious extension. I wish I had some real people in here who would celebrate God and say, I'm only here by grace. I'm only breathing here by grace. I'm only celebrating him by grace. Hallelujah. Grace's extension.
Yes,
God
sir.
says, I'm gonna take care of your mistake. Yeah, can I tell you the wraparound part of this is this. When I made all them tickets, my dad, he found a lawyer, and the lawyer cost a certain amount of money. He was a good lawyer. Good lawyers ain't cheap.
No, they're not.
Lawyer says, yeah, I can take care of this, Mr. Alexander, but it's gonna be at least $350 per ticket, and we gotta get at least 2 of these off. So I'm in calculus, so I know math. I do numbers. So immediately I said, that's $700. Problem is, we 2 weeks away from prom. And some of y'all ain't forgot what it was like when it was time to go to prom.
All right.
You want to look a certain way, you want to drive a certain car, you got certain activities you trying to do. And I said, man, that's all my prom money and then some. I ain't got it. Yeah, you know how when reality sets in, somebody talk to me, when reality sets in and you go, this is bigger than me.
Yes.
And I'm sitting there, I just sunk down in the seat as the man was talking. He could have been saying, it wouldn't matter if he said 700 or 7,000, either way.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I ain't got it. Because in my mind, if I got to hitchhike to prom, I'm going to prom. And then my daddy looking at me like, boy, don't nothing else matter. So there go prom, and then I still ain't got it. What do you do when your resources come up short and even what you put towards it ain't enough to put on it? What do you do when God seemingly puts you in over your head and seemingly knows you gonna come up short? I'm sitting there short. And the whole time my dad just looking at me like death is in the building. Like, he mad. He got on work clothes. You got to understand something. My dad worked very hard. He spotted tractor trailers and he drove a forklift. He worked typically 12-hour days. So when we go to this lawyer's office, that means he had to take off early. In that generation, you don't take off early.
That's right.
If you take off early, somebody better be dead. And so here we are. He got on his work clothes. He done took off early. And he ain't smiling about nothing. Lawyer's talking, he just shaking his head. I'm sinking. He gave me that look. That meant sit up. I sit up. Y'all know what I'm talking about.
Yes, sir.
I sit up. Lawyer keeps talking. I sink again. He look again. This time it's like, if you don't sit up this time, then I'm going to need a lawyer. So I sit up. And in the midst of all of that, after he finished giving all the particulars, my father finally looks to me with the biggest smile on his face. And so when he smiled, I didn't know if this really it, or if this is something he heard that I didn't. Because in my mind, watch this, when life is bad enough, you hear all the negative.
Yes.
So I'm thinking maybe I missed a detail, because last I checked, this man needs $700 before he gonna even make a phone call. I ain't got it, and in my mind, it's my mistake. You ain't gonna give it to me. So what am I gonna do? He smiled. Here's what I didn't know. Normally, my daddy was a cash guy. He didn't use a card. He didn't use credit cards. He very rarely, if ever, wrote a check. What I didn't know is, when he got up that morning, he put his checkbook in his coat pocket. And so when we're sitting in front of the lawyer and all of this is happening, then he smiles. He just whipped out his checkbook, wrote a check for $700, and said, we'll cover this and figure the rest out later. Can I suggest to you that where you are, that God already knows what it costs?
Yes, sir.
He knows what your mistakes have cost him, and he knows what it's cost you.
Yes, sir.
And can I tell you that because he promised and he's patient, that he's willing to walk with you long enough to not only make up for your mistake, but to give you what you didn't deserve, so that when you get it, you'll be the one to say that God did it. Does anybody ever have in here with them a God did it moment where you didn't deserve it? He showed up in a way you didn't expect it. He blessed you when you deserved to be punished. Somebody talked to me. He showed up when others walked away. He cried with you when you cried. He walked with you when you hurt. He stayed with you when everybody else left. And yet he's there saying, I promised you because I'm patient.
Amen.
Can I suggest to you, and I'm done, that in these last few verses, God in essence tells Abraham, Watch this. I gave you a gracious extension. I'm going to do it through Isaac. And then here's what I love, and I'll close. Verse 22, and the Bible says, and when God was finished, talking to Abraham, that word finished means completely done.
All right.
It is as if God said, I've told you everything. I've blessed you beyond measure. I'm dropping the mic now, and I'm out.
Come on now.
Now, here's the kicker. Sarah don't have this baby till chapter 21. So he had to live another year. But can I tell you, I would suggest that he live different, because he understood his detour wasn't to derail him, it was to develop him.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen.
So that he could understand what God was working with and what God could work through. Here's what I want to leave with you today. Some of you are in your own detour right now.
Yeah.
You're in your own car, and you keep hitting roadblocks, and you keep trying to fix it, and you keep trying to do the work, and you keep trying to figure it out, and you keep trying to come up with a plan, and you keep getting frustrated. So then you pick up something new to deal with the frustration, and then the new gets frustrated, and then the new gets frustrated, and then all of a sudden everybody's frustrated with you because you're tense. Can I suggest to you that God only wants you on one detour because he's trying to develop something that he can't otherwise. So trust him. When he says it's finished, if it take a year or 20, it's done.
Amen. Amen.
Now, I don't know what you're waiting on. I don't know what you need God to do. Here's what I do know. I know he's faithful.
Amen.
Yes.
Yes.
And I know that Abraham ended up with a son.
Amen.
So that lets me know to share with all of us that no matter what detour you're on, God's going to bring you out.
Amen.
You got somebody next to you. Take their hand. Some of you came here thinking today that this detour, God's trying to kill me. I'm somewhere I don't want to be. I'm dealing with somebody I don't want to deal with. I'm facing something I never thought I'd face. And yet God still has me here. That's because detours are personal development exercise. Not feel-good exercises. Personal development exercises. And if any of you have ever had a personal trainer, you know personal trainers push everything.
Amen.
And then when you get tired, they push some more. God lives for us to get tired, so he can push us to grow our faith. I want to pray, because I don't know what you're facing when you're ready to leave here. I don't know what detour God has you on. But I do know the promise is not negated, it's just prolonged.
Amen.
Took 25 years for Abraham to get that son. But God blessed him with a son. And then God blessed him with the nations. God did stuff long after he was gone, because his promise was bigger than just him. Can I suggest to you what makes things painful sometimes is because the promise is not just you.
Amen.
It's beyond you. It's about whoever's connected to you. This is why you can't give up, and this is why you can't quit, because it don't impact just you. It impacts whoever's connected to you. Yeah, you got to keep following the road. No matter how many twists and turns and winds and hills and valleys. Because God promised. No matter how foolish it makes you look, no matter how much you want to quit, no matter how many times you want to go and get an Ishmael, God promised. And if God promised it, it's established. It's possible. I don't care how barren or dry it is. Let's pray. Bow your heads, Father. Sometimes the detours of life are mean. Sometimes they're brutal. And yet, God, you said they will be so. And that you will use them to develop us. So God, wherever we are, whatever we're facing, whatever we're dealing with, God, please, not only give us strength for endurance, not only graciously extend yourself, but God, continue to ground us and guide us. Strengthen us and provide. show us what you want to do in us, not our neighbors, not our family, not our co-workers, but Lord, what is it you're doing in me? What is it you're doing in us? Then God, help us to trust you no matter what we see. No matter what our physical eye sees, if it's your promise, help us to cling to that. Then Lord, I'm holding somebody's hand. You know their detour. I don't, but you do. Give them what they need to make it through this season of life. Give them what it is that you're trying to do in them so that they can be who you've called them to be. We pray and ask these things, Lord, in Jesus' name. Let us all say together, amen.
Amen.
Put our hands together. How many of you know you're on a detour right now?
Amen.
Did this help you? I hope.
Yes.
I hope. Yeah. Next week we're gonna deal with Jacob wrestling with God. How to survive a wrestling match. Yeah. I'll just tell you in advance, he walked different.
Amen.
Did I tell you that maybe God wants us to walk different? Yeah. He too will have a way of doing that. Because when you finally get where you intended to go, you almost want to kiss the ground and say, thank you. I made it.
Amen.
I made it.
Yes, sir.
Nothing else matters. I made it. We can check in the hotel in a moment, but hold on. We made it.
Amen.
Can I tell you you're going to make it?
Amen.
I can't tell you how long it's going to take. I can't even tell you how old you're going to be. Because Lord have mercy, if God is birthing babies at 90, I can't tell you. And I don't care what you try and give me, I ain't going to lie and tell you I can. But I can tell you it's going to come to pass.
Amen.
It's going to walk you through some hurts and address some pain, cough up some unforgiveness, wrestle with some burdens. We'll deal with some of that next week because Jacob walked with his burden. He never knew how to give them up. Some of you and some of us, what holds you back now is what you hold on to about what you did.
All right.
So God puts you on a detour so you can let it go. All right, a couple of quick announcements because I can tell you, thank you, you're pondering. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Real quick, Man Cave is coming.
Amen.
June 15th, it'll be here in 2 weeks. And we got things lined out. It's going to be a great time, brothers. You can come. It will bless you. Ladies, if you got a guy that you're thinking about, send him.
Amen.
We'll help you figure out if it's worth the time or not.
Amen.
We're going to save you a detour. Send him. But seriously, Man Cave, June 15th, June 16th. That Sunday, we'll celebrate. The thing is when men worship. It's a powerful thing when men worship.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
It's a powerful thing.
Amen.
And most of us are not encouraged to do so. So men, come, bring a brother with you. I promise you, this is not the what you should do better man's day speech.
Amen.
I will not do that to you. I know what that feels like to sit in church on Father's Day.
Come on, sir.
And the pastor and or preacher just beat you down about what you don't do.
Amen.
Never stop to think. They don't do this on Mama Day.
That's right.
I dare any pastor stand up on Mama's Day and tell Mama what she don't do.
All right.
See if he have a job Monday morning. Ain't gonna happen. Board meeting that night, you fired. Not to mention all the kids gonna attack you too. Don't be talking about my mom. But seriously, when men worship, it's a time to encourage, to uplift, and to allow the women to peek from the periphery. Because ladies, I love you. You're 100% great at being a woman, but you know zero about being a man.
Amen. Amen.
And a few of you I know didn't grow up with men in your house, and so you're trying to process how a man's think without a man's example.
Come on.
It don't work that way.
Teach.
So you get to peek in from a peripheral on Father's Day as we celebrate these men and who God has made them to be. So that's that. So that's Man Cave. That's Father's Day. And then we're going to finish this series the last Sunday in June. And on that last Sunday, we're going to do something. I'm not going to let the rabbit totally out the hat. But I would just tell you, you will want to be here. Time of fellowship, time of worship, and time of work. Because I believe there's somebody in here, at least one, that God really wants to change something in their life, do something different. And it's just a matter of you being willing to let go and finish out the detail.
Amen.
Amen.
I can tell you, I've made many mistakes, and one of them is being on a detour, driving physically, and then trust it, and veer off, have to come back only to find out I was maybe 2 minutes away from being back on course. I'm trying to help somebody who might be 2 minutes away from the greatest blessing in your life.
All right.
But you're trying to do it yourself. Yeah, 2 minutes away. God wants to do something. So that's how we're going to do that. That's how we're going to wrap that up. Lastly, ladies, Women's Retreat, August 17th and 18th. Y'all get to ditch us for 36 hours.
All right.
Brothers, encouraging. It's the best investment you can do.
Amen.
Because you don't want an Ishmael in your house. I promise you. She ain't going to live with it. Sarah's a special kind of woman. Only one of them come from heaven, brother. It ain't going to happen. So send her to the retreat. It will help you and bless you. All right, we're going to give on our way out to our guests. It's so great to see your faces. We have connection cards back there. Please fill out one. We love to stay connected to you. We give an offering on our way out. So however God has graced you, you can give it here. You can go online to our website. Or you can go in the App Store and download our app and give it that way. Here's how we're going to end this. I want you to find somebody you did not ride with, at least two people. Just tell them you're glad to see them. Because again, if you don't know what they face,
right.
you don't know what it took for them to get here.
Amen.
Just because it's sunny outside doesn't mean it ain't a thunderstorm in somebody's life.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So on the count of 3, can you handle it? 1, 2, 3. God bless you.
I said soon. Soon doesn't mean 24 hours.